What in the world is a zero spend grocery challenge? Why would I even consider doing it? And how would I go about doing it? I'm Laura, and I hope you'll make yourself at home while I answer all of these questions for you in the next few minutes. So let's start by talking about the why. Why in the world would you want to do this? What is the point? I think the first and most obvious answer is money. You're going to pocket a nice chunk of change. Whatever you're used to spending at the grocery store, you're going to pocket that or close to that at the end of the month. And you can allocate that to any number of things. Maybe you had an emergency creep up and you don't know where you're going to get the money from. Maybe you had extra Christmas bills that you really didn't plan on spending, but there they are, and they're kind of hanging over now that the beginning of the year has started. How are you going to pay it off? This could go a long way towards that. Maybe you just like the challenge of it and like saving money. Maybe you set it aside and just do something fun to reward yourself. It doesn't really matter. It's completely up to you. But you're going to save a nice amount of money. This is probably the biggest and most concrete, tangible benefit that I can tell you. The other benefits are phenomenal, but they're not really things that we can measure in numbers and dollars. But they're totally worth it, and stick with me while I share those with you. So the next benefit is intentionality. You become much more deliberate about your plan. You probably have to have a bit of a game plan. We'll talk about that a little more. And beyond the game plan, you have to have some intentionality about what you're going to do after you've eaten that meal. You're going to save all of the leftovers. You're going to be sure to use those the next day or later in the week. And you're going to have a plan for all the food that's in your house. That's not a bad thing. In fact, we probably need to be in the habit of doing that more often on a consistent basis. Another benefit is the stewardship that's involved. You're going to be careful about the money you spend. You're going to be extra careful about what you do with the things that you bought with that money. And it just brings stewardship to a new level when you're not planning to spend any more money unless absolutely necessary. Closely connected to stewardship is the resourcefulness that this is going to promote. You are going to see items in your pantry or refrigerator or freezer and figure out things to do with them. Maybe you make a dish you haven't made in a while. Maybe you come up with a new dish. Maybe you get creative, and the creativity is another benefit this brings. Who knows? Maybe you come up with an off-the-wall recipe and it's a hit with your family and it sticks. You're going to recycle that idea in following months. And that's a really nice benefit. Another benefit is it teaches us about moderation. You know, we live in a society where we're typically very blessed people, even if we may not be on the high income bracket. We're very blessed and usually don't have any trouble putting food on the table. And if that's the case, this is a good, humbling reminder that we don't have to have everything. We don't even have to have everything we want. We don't have to have that cut of meat or that additional side item or that snack item or convenience item that we like. There's nothing wrong with them, but this is just kind of a reminder that it doesn't have to be about all of those things, and we don't have to have them all the time. And there again, connected to that is the contentment that this should bring. It reminds us that we can be satisfied with a little less, that it's okay to go without, and we're going to be fine. We're probably not going to go hungry. And even if we do go a little hungry for a short amount of time, that's going to pass. We're going to eat again and everything's going to be just fine. So now that I've shared the why, let's go over a few ground rules on how to operate in a zero spend month. Zero spend, it sounds like, well, what it is. It's zero spend. There are a couple of exceptions. It's not technically zero. We do make exceptions for some necessary items like essential dairy and produce. This is not about depriving ourselves of nutrition. That is not the point at all. We want to make sure that we get a balanced diet and we're getting fruits and vegetables and things like that that we need. We want the dairy that we need on a daily basis. So it's not about that. And we do need to set aside a small amount for those things. That amount is going to vary from family to family. I will tell you that I go on the low side. In my household, it's my husband, myself, and we have a 5-year-old daughter. I will set aside about $10 a week. Now, I know that sounds crazy and shocking, probably to you, but I will tell you that if memory serves me correct, when I did this a year ago, I spent $23 for the entire month of February. So I feel like $10 a month is pretty generous and should get us what we need. If your family is larger, you will probably need a little more than that, and you will have to figure that out. It's very subjective, and you just need to be realistic and fair with yourself and with the idea of zero spend. So do something that works for your family and gets you what you need, but doesn't give you excess. The other exception that we need to make allowances for is food restrictions and allergies. I'm fortunate in our family that we don't have to deal with any of those things, but I know many people do. And we have to be cognizant of that. We're not going to ignore that. We're not going to put anyone's health in danger during a challenge like this. So whatever accommodations you need to make for your family, that's what you need to do. Set aside that amount of money. There again, be reasonable. You know the items you need to purchase for them probably. If there are dairy restrictions and you need a non-dairy milk or non-dairy cheeses or other products, you need to do that, and you know the cost. So sit down and figure that out and come up with something that's reasonable for your family. Now, a couple rules that are hard and fast. No cheating the month before or after, and no cheating on the eating out budget. So I plan to do this in the month of February, which, by the way, I choose February because it's the shortest month of the year. I'm just going to level with you, and I feel like it's just a mental thing with me. I know there are 28 days in a typical February. That's just what I do, and that's the reason why I do it. You can choose to do whatever works for you if you choose to do this challenge, but no cheating the month of January or March. I can't go over in January or spend early in March just to make it work. If I do that, it's defeated part of the point of it. So that's the hard and fast rule, no cheating the month before or after. And as I said, the other no cheating rule is about eating out. If you and your family have an allocated amount of money set aside for eating out each month, you have to stick with that. It's not going to work if you have $200 set aside for the month of February to eat out, and because you can't pull it together and figure out the meal plan one night, you end up spending $300 or $400 during the month. That's blown a big chunk of the savings. So if you're really going to buckle down and do the challenge, no cheating on the eating out either. Now, I'd like to share a few tips that have helped me in the past that I think will be helpful to you if you're considering this challenge. The first tip I'll share with you, have a game plan. If you go into this month without any kind of idea of what you're going to do, you are destined to fail. And believe me, you want to have a plan if you want to save this money. You don't have to plan every single night if you don't want to. That may work better for you and your personality, and that may work better for you to accomplish your goal. And if that's the case, absolutely do that. I will probably have a running list of about a dozen or so meal options, dinner meals that is, and then I'll also have a running list of lunch ideas that we'll rotate through. And that's generally how I approach this. But having a plan will help you accomplish this, believe me. Now, the second tip I want to share with you is stocking up. I highly recommend stocking up on certain items at the end of January. I've set aside a little bit of money at the end of this month that I'm going to take and buy certain items. For instance, I'll get a bag of potatoes, make sure I have enough rice, pasta. I'll get a bag of apples, a bag of oranges because they have a longer shelf life. I'll probably get a large bag of lettuce so that we can have some fresh salads on the front end of the month of February. And then later in the month, I'll start looking at our canned goods freezer items, things like that, to try and use up more at the end of the month. But if you make sure you have a good supply of certain vegetables that do have a longer shelf life, certain fruits as well, that can get you a long way through the month. In fact, some of those will last the entire month if you're careful and store them properly. So stock up as you can. Also, take note of the things that you're low on around the house. If you're in the habit of putting other items into your grocery budget, as we are in our house, certain household items, you need to be sure and check on all of those things. Toilet paper, shampoo, deodorant, toothpaste, things like that. You need to be looking now to see what your stock is like. Do we have enough to get through this month and next month before I have to buy any more? Because I don't want to have to spend money on that if I don't have to. Obviously, if you run out of deodorant, you need to go buy some more. But you'd like for that not to happen. So that's what we're trying to accomplish here. Now, this next tip may sound a little counterintuitive to our first tip of having a plan, but be flexible. You may run into a day where you have to do something different than you had planned. You may eat some leftovers and use them up faster than you had originally thought you would. You may have counted on that for a couple more meals and you just don't have it. You may have to scrounge around for some things. So just be prepared to be flexible as necessary. The next thing I would tell you is to think simple. This is not the time to get complicated and fancy with your cooking. Don't be looking for that exotic or extra ingredient or that new gourmet casserole that you've been wanting to try. That day will come, but this is not the month for that. Think simple. Go back to the basics, meat and potatoes. Just a simple main dish and side item. You don't have to put a lot of extra items on the table. That's fine if you want to and you have it, but that's not necessary to fill bellies, and sometimes it's good for us to remind ourselves of that. You can even plan some meatless meals. This is a great opportunity to incorporate those into your game plan. And think about doing breakfast for supper, because that's a very cost-effective way. Even if you have a breakfast meat, it's still a pretty cost-effective meal. So keep it simple. Don't get fancy. Just do what you need to get food on the table for your family. Another tip I would share is communicate with your family members. The worst thing that can happen is for you to get into the month and they start requesting items, and then you break it to them, oh, we're not spending money this month. That's kind of devastating to them, and honestly, not entirely fair. So I would suggest telling them ahead of time. Sit down at dinner one night and say, hey, I'm going to try this challenge next month, and I would like to tell you about it, and I want everybody to be on board. Make sure they know so that midway through the month, when they run out of their favorite snack, they don't come crying and wanting you to buy it at the store. I'll share a story with you from last year when we did this challenge here in our house. About halfway through the month, we ran out of vanilla wafers, the beloved nighttime snack of my husband. He loves the vanilla wafers with peanut butter on them. We had talked about this ahead of time, so bless his heart, he did not ask me to buy any more vanilla wafers. I was waiting on him to, but he did not. So I looked up a recipe for homemade vanilla wafers, never made them before, and tried that recipe out, and they were so yummy. They weren't exactly like store-bought, they weren't as crispy, but they were so delicious. And it was just kind of a fun experiment to try that new recipe. And that's one of the things that will come out of this month. You might find opportunities like that to try some new things. But it definitely helped that he knew ahead of time that we were not buying extras at the grocery store. This last tip may sound a little odd at first, but hear me out. Plan other projects that promote stewardship. So plan some kind of organizational project around your house that you've been wanting to do already. Clean out that cabinet, organize that drawer, pull the clothes out of the closet or the drawer and get rid of the ones that don't fit or the ones that have gotten worn out and you don't need them anymore. Those things don't cost you any money to do, and they feel so good when you've completed that task. And here's where I'm going with this. All of those things promote taking care of our resources and being good stewards of the things that we've been blessed with. And I think when we do this in one area of our life, it helps us in other areas. And I feel like there's this spillover effect. And so if you can get some momentum in another area, it just makes you want to do better in the kitchen with your pantry and cabinets and with your meal plans. One of the things I think you'll notice is that the benefits of doing something like this will go far beyond the month itself. Like I said, it's far more than just the amount of money that you save. That's wonderful. Who doesn't want it? We all would like that in our pocket. But these other things that are not quite so tangible and concrete, they will go far beyond the month. I hope the stewardship and the resourcefulness, the creativity, and even the moderation and contentment, hopefully they will have a lasting impact on us and will help us moving forward. If you're interested in a challenge like this, I would love to hear from you. And maybe you have some tips of your own that you would love to share. Please comment below. I would love to hear them. I encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I plan to post updates on this. I plan to post a video at the end of this month as I make more specific preparations for the month of February. And then I plan to post some updates during the month, tell you about some of the things we're doing around the house, some of the meals that we've had, and maybe some of the challenges, update you on any essential spending that we're doing, that type of thing. So if you would like to stay updated on our progress and how we're doing on our challenge, subscribe to the channel and look for upcoming videos in the next few weeks. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you'll check out more of my videos like this one right here.